Oh, hi there, Ollie Anderson here. This is a video about reawakening your creativity. I say reawaken because in our natural state, we are all creative. That doesn't mean that we're all skilled or that we're all talented, but we all have the capacity to develop skills and talents. What I actually mean when I said that we're all naturally creative is that we all have the capacity to solve the problems in our lives. We all have the problems to deal with the limitations and find creative ways of dealing with them. And we all have a natural drive towards wholeness. Wholeness means a deeper sense of connection to ourselves by making the unconscious conscious, a deeper connection to other people by coming from a real place, and then a deeper connection to life by understanding that life keeps moving, life keeps expanding, life keeps evolving. And so if we want to be as real as possible, we have to tap into our creativity in order to keep being lifelike. That just means we keep moving, we keep flowing, we keep growing, and we keep becoming connected. This video is going to be about how if you feel like your creativity is dormant, then ultimately you're either resisting something inside yourself that is causing you to resist life, or you are so caught up in the old way of being and seeing yourself and seeing life because you've created an identity for yourself, basically, that you stopped learning. Because you're filtering everything that happens to you through what you already think you know, aka the ego, and that's just causing you to kind of stagnate and to not get anywhere. And the only reason you're stagnating and not moving and getting where you want to be is because you've taken yourself out of the natural process of moving towards wholeness. So this video is going to be about how if you put yourself back in alignment with that process, then your creativity is going to reawaken because it never went anywhere. It just kind of went into hiding because of the way you were seeing yourself and not seeing life. So before we get too deeply into this, I want to make a distinction between the creative process that I'm talking about, which is the natural process of moving towards wholeness that we would all be engaged in all of the time if we weren't blocking ourselves with our own mental stuff, and the more day-to-day kind of creativity that we associate with the word creative. For example, painting a picture, taking photos, writing a novel, whatever it is. All of those creative activities are really important. And by doing the kind of things that I'm going to be talking about in this video, you'll find it much easier to invest your time and energy into those things. But no matter what it is that you choose to do as a creative outlet, if it's real in the way that I'm talking about, then by using that vehicle to express yourself, you're going to make yourself move from a state of fragmentation and disconnection to a state of wholeness. And all that means is that as you create something in whatever media you've chosen, the unconscious is going to become conscious. And that just means that certain parts of yourself that you may have disowned or been hiding from because of your relationship with yourself are going to become clear. They're going to come surging to the surface, and you're going to find them on the page or on the canvas or in the lyrics of your songs or whatever it is. And if you struggle to be creative, it basically means in most cases that there is some block in your life that is stopping that process from unfolding in the way that it needs to. We'll go into that in a bit more detail. But the distinction I want to make is that creativity and skill and talent are interconnected, but they're different. I think that we're all creative in the way that I'm talking about, where we have this drive towards wholeness and we can express it and blah, 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 blah. But if we want to be skilled or we want to be talented, then we need to work on that by being consistent, disciplined, and focused and directing our energy into improving our skills. So that's just something I wanted to throw out because this isn't a video about being skilled. It's a video about being creative. The ideal state, of course, is that you have both. You're being creative and you're skilled. And actually, by working on your skills and going from a state of unskilled to skilled, well, you'll grow more real in the way that I'm talking about anyway. But ultimately, this process is about being real and aligned with nature. And the skills are kind of on top of that. So I just wanted to put that out there so you don't think I'm going to give you some kind of magical panacea for becoming really skilled and talented. This is just a process of learning and growing so that you can be more creative with your skills, or you'll be less judgmental with yourself as you try to upskill in the future. So one thing that might make this easier to understand is that there are different levels of creativity, I think. And as with anything else, you can understand this in the simplest way by looking at it in terms of either fragmentation and wholeness, ego, realness, or unreal and real. All that means is that the more deeper we go into life and the way that it works, the more real things become. And the more we move away from that, the more unreal they become. Now, on this fancy diagram that I've made, which is an abridged version of an even fancier one I made, which you'll find on my website, I'll put a link somewhere. Basically, I've broken it down so that the outer levels are more unreal, but still real. And the inner levels, the smaller circles, are more real. The realest level, I think, is making the unconscious conscious. That's the main theme of this video, that to be creative, you need to align yourself with that process so that it can keep happening in the way that it needs to, and that you can be more aligned with your own nature and the nature of life itself. Now, I won't go through all these levels. You can pause it and have a look if you want. But ultimately, the most unreal version is just imitation. That is ego. The ego imitates either itself and what it already thinks it knows, so it doesn't have to grow, or it imitates other things in the world that already exist. That's the lowest level of creativity, in my opinion, because all you're doing is copying and pasting. Of course, it does have value. Like, as Picasso said, like great artists steal, or whatever the hell he said. But ultimately, if you want to be real, you need to stop just copying other people in the world and allow yourself to see what your unconscious is trying to make conscious, so that you can actually create something original that is sourced within you and from your relationship with life. As you go through these levels, you ultimately get out of the conceptual and you get into the experiential. If people are just imitating, they may understand the concepts of what it is that they're imitating, but on the deepest level, they don't understand the inner experience that led to whatever that was, assuming that what was imitated wasn't just imitated itself and everybody's out there just remixing and combining elements and all that kind of stuff. The deepest level of creativity is the one that I keep talking about like a broken record now, making the unconscious conscious. Because if you can do that, then you're going to bring up something from your own shadow that is going to allow you to be more deeply connected to yourself. That's going to allow you to be more deeply connected to other people, because you'll have a stronger foundation within yourself. And more importantly, you're going to be more connected to the natural unfolding and flowing of life itself, which is the most creative thing going. Ultimately then, if you find yourself not capable of being creative as you know you can be, then you have kind of forgotten that real always works. That's something that I love to say because it's true. Real always works. All you really need to do is to tap into your realness. And if you do that, then you're going to be aligned with reality itself, nature itself, and the creative impulse that we all have when that is the way we are living. Now, reality is kind of a dirty word these days, even though it's like one of my most overused words. And that's because we all think that everything is relative, everything is subjective, blah, blah, blah. That's not necessarily true. When people say, I have my reality, you have your reality, and anything analogous to that, what they actually mean is, I have my interpretation of reality, you have your interpretation of reality, and I'm going to basically stick to it. Now, reality itself, nobody can argue about it. And ultimately, it's just a bunch of natural laws that are universal and apply to every single one of us. To keep it simple, all we really need to know about reality is two things. One, it keeps moving. And two, it is connected. It's about connection. Everything in reality is just one big relationship, having a relationship with itself. And so if you just take those two premises as a starting point for improving your relationship with reality, which is naturally creative, then you're going to get much better results and your creativity is naturally going to reawaken. One, keep growing, keep expanding, keep learning. Two, remember that everything is connected and move towards connection, because the only thing that can stop you from being connected to yourself and the world and others is this ego thing that I keep talking about. And so if you do those two things, you're going to align yourself with the natural drive that we all have towards wholeness. And as a consequence of that, your realness and your creativity are going to reawaken and you're going to get better results. So in relation to what I already said about the unconscious becoming conscious and how that is aligned with the natural unfolding of nature itself, if you live in this real way of constantly seeking growth and expansion, and two, constantly seeking a deeper connection to yourself, the world, and reality, then you'll have no choice but to make the unconscious conscious, which is naturally going to make you more creative, because as the unconscious becomes conscious, all kinds of creative urges and impulses and intentions are going to call to us that we have to act on if we want to get to the next level of even deeper growth and expansion and deeper connection. Now, the other reason that living in this way is so powerful is because it's going to keep you stretching. In coaching, we always talk about how there's 3 levels. There's the comfort zone, which we've all heard about. That is essentially just the ego. We create a little box so we can stop the unconscious becoming conscious, keep hiding from our shadow and our shame and guilt and trauma and blah, 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 blah. And we just filter everything that we do through our need to stay comfortable and to stay the same. If you do that, then the natural consequence is that you are going to be blocking the unconscious becoming conscious behind conceptual ideas and bullshit and blah, blah, blah. And of course, your creativity is going to be dormant because in a way, whether you know it or not, you're actively stopping it from doing what it needs to do. The next level is the stretch zone. The stretch zone is where you find some thing that you need to do or want to do that is just going to push you a little bit beyond what you already think you know about yourself. You're going to find what I like to call the edge. Being in the stretch zone feels amazing. There's a kind of creative tension that you get when you're there because you kind of know where you're going towards more wholeness and a vision that you may have created for that, but you're not going so far that you're in the 3rd level on this diagram, which is that you're panicking. If you reach the panic zone, which is the 3rd of the 3, comfort, stretch, panic, you reach the panic zone, you've gone too far. You're not ready to be there. And that's why if you keep growing and trying to connect to life more deeply in a strategic way, you can stay in the stretch zone. And that is where you're going to get the unconscious becoming conscious in a manageable, pleasurable, and enjoyable way where you're actually going to get results because you're not asleep in the comfort zone of the ego and you're not pushing yourself too far, which again is ego, and panicking and then not getting any results. To keep this really practical, I just want to give you a couple of ways in both of those areas of learning and constantly growing and expanding and connecting to yourself, the world, and reality on a more deeper level. I want to give you some practical things that you can do so you can actually start living like this and reawaken that natural drive that I keep talking about of being connected to ourselves in such a way where the unconscious is becoming conscious and we're moving with wholeness and the flow of life instead of trying to force everything through ego, which always kills our creativity. The first thing that you need to do then is you need to find a way to keep learning. If you keep learning, then you're going to develop a growth mindset, which is going to keep you aligned with the way of nature itself and your nature as a human being. And more importantly, you're going to keep testing the assumptions that your ego and your habitual way of identifying rests upon so that you can stretch yourself and basically evolve into the next version of who you are. I'm not one of those guys that says we can kill the ego. You can't kill something that's unreal, and we all need an ego to survive in life. But you can keep pushing the envelope so what you think you know is more aligned with the truth the longer that you live and the more that you keep learning, etc. So some really practical things that you can do: read more books, do more courses, talk to more people, go to new places. Don't just live in the same old routine day after day after day. That's going to cause you to stagnate. And obviously, in that state of stagnation, your ego is going to become more impactful in your life, and it's going to block out any truth that may be trying to enter your life. And as a consequence, it's going to stop the unconscious becoming conscious. Basically, all I need to say is that if you can find new ways to continue learning and evolving, then you're going to bring more truth into your life. And as I've said many times, not in this video, I don't think, if you uncover the truth and live the truth, you can't help but be real and align yourself with this thing that we're talking about, the drive towards wholeness, where your creativity is going to come surging up. So that's the first thing. The second thing that you can do to keep learning and evolving and expanding is to set goals. A lot of creative people hate setting goals. They think that setting goals is going to somehow make them less creative. But actually, if you set goals, then it's going to ensure, if you do it in the right way, that you're going to challenge yourself enough to keep stretching yourself. And by stretching, the old version of the ego, which is blocking your creativity, is going to kind of dissolve and things are going to surface. And as long as you're choosing goals that are real, and that just means that they're going to allow you to become more of what you are, not to keep hiding behind the ego stuff, then you will keep evolving day after day. You'll be more aligned with the law of cause and effect and all the other laws that come with nature itself and reality itself. And by working with them to your advantage to improve your life through conscious goal making, then you're ultimately going to have to unblock your creativity because you're moving. That's basically all I'm saying. Keep moving and you will become more real and you'll become more creative by extension. The second thing that we all need to do if we want to be more creative, along with keep growing, is to keep becoming more connected to life. Now, the reason that connection is so important is because the ego, the thing that stops us from being as creative as we can be, is ultimately the illusion of disconnection. And if we live according to the illusion of disconnection, then we can't align ourselves with life where everything is connected and it's just systems and systems and systems and relationships having relationships with themselves. And so if you actively work to be more connected to yourself, more connected to others, and more connected to life, and especially if you combine it with constant evolution and learning and expansion and goals in the way that I just talked about, you can't not be creative, because by aligning yourself in this real way, like I keep saying now, the unconscious is going to become conscious, because that's just what happens when we're real. So how do you become more connected? Basically, the best way to do it is to get out of your head, which is the ego, get into your body. And so for most people, I recommend just finding some form of exercise that you love. Go for a hike, do yoga. That's the best one I've found. Dance around, whatever it is, find a way to get in your body. Besides that, you need to find ways to change your perspective so that you are deeply connected to life, even when things are kind of challenging or difficult or whatever. The standard thing there that people get told to do, which works, is to keep some kind of a gratitude ritual. For me, I just write down every day. I've got a gratitude journal. I write down 10 things that I'm grateful for. I write down what it is and why. So for example, today I am really grateful for the trees outside because I like looking out the window and blah, 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 blah. I'm just saying that because there's some trees over there, although I am grateful for them, pretty nice. But anyway, the point is, if you have gratitude for something, there is no disconnection between you and whatever it is. And so if you do that every day, you're going to be more connected to life. That's going to make you feel better about yourself. Because you feel better about yourself, you're going to have better relationships with other people. And if you combine it with a constant evolution and growth and getting in your body, you're going to be more creative. The other thing that you can do is meditation and all that kind of stuff. Be mindful. If you can do those kind of practices in your life every day, then you're going to be more connected to who you are, because you're not going to have the little chatter, the hamster wheel of the ego telling you that you're disconnected. You're going to realize you're not totally independent from everything else, because the illusion of separation also belongs to the ego. And the combination of that 1-2 punch of the lifelong learning, constant evolution and growth, and the connection to life through getting in your body, getting in your breath, and being grateful for life is going to make you more creative. It's guaranteed. So what's been the main lesson in this video? The main lesson ultimately is that there are different levels of creativity, and the deepest level is the most natural level. But it seems kind of unnatural because we have all conditioned ourselves with mental chatter and bullshit and nonsense that we have picked up over the course of our lives that's caused us to become fragmented and to identify as something other than what we are. What we are is real, and that means that we keep evolving and that we're connected to life. We're not hiding from that learning, and we're not resisting the natural connection that is always there. Now, the key problem in all of our lives, in almost any situation I've found, is the way that we identify. It's always an identity problem that is causing us to distort our view of life or to resist what's right in front of us. And the final caveat that I want to put here in this video is that there is a difference between identifying as a creative person and being a creative person. If you identify as a creative person, well, that's just the ego stuff, especially if you're overly attached to it because you think that creativity is some kind of magical unicorn that is going to solve all your problems or make you adored and give you all the love that you feel you may not be able to give yourself, or whatever it is that's causing you to do that. And in opposition to that is what I'm talking about. Being creative, being real. And all that means is that you stop thinking about what you are and you just be it and you allow it to happen and you go with it in a controlled and strategic way. So hopefully that's helped. If you feel like you want to go deeper, I have a free 7-day course with a 158-page workbook called the 7-Day Personality Transplant System Shock for Realness and Life Purpose. Check that out at ollieanderson.co.uk/system shock. If you want any help around these kind of issues that I talked about, you can book a call on my website. But ultimately, all I want to say is if you keep learning and you keep connecting to yourself and life, your creativity will naturally reawaken. You actually don't have to do anything to make it happen. It's just a natural consequence of being real, living real, and doing the real stuff that is calling to you from the unconscious so you can make it conscious, live a real life. So that's the video. Hope that helped. Peace to you.